2, 1.
Hey folks, we're back. You don't see a familiar face up here. You've maybe seen a face that you've seen a few times. Part of the All-Star panel on Friday. Happy to be live in the office this morning while BKP is a little bit under the weather. We, if you didn't hear it or see it, we had a great segment the last half hour. We had Joanne on the line and we talked about Gina Haspel, who's going to be grilled today, but I believe will be the next CIA director. And we touched a little bit about the 3 Korean Americans that thankfully are on an airplane with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who is delivering their seasoned these 3 guys rather, delivering them back safely to the U.S. They are apparently in good health. Trump tweeted that out this morning. Couple other things that of note. You know, we had some primaries yesterday. We're going to have a lot more next week. We had some significant wins in these primaries for candidates, and they all shared one thing. I know we've got in West Virginia we had Patrick Morrissey, the state attorney general, picked up a win. Mike Braun, the self-funded businessman in Indiana, picked up a win, and Jim Renacci, GOP Senate primary win in Ohio. They all shared one thing, and that is that they supported the Trump initiatives. They supported lower taxes. They supported more jobs. They stood along the same thing that Trump has been putting out there to his followers, to his base for the last 18 months. And I think that brought home the win for them. Another guy that is trying to bring home the win in Georgia, gubernatorial candidate Hunter Hill. I guess you could say that Hunter Hill's probably in the top tier of candidates, the top 3, Casey Cagle, Brian Kemp, and Hunter Hill. Picked up a national endorsement with Hunter Hill. And Amanda, you want to just play some of that interview, if you will?
Casey Cagle talks about his Georgia values, but he championed tax cuts for a strip club. Hunter Hill talks like he's Rambo, but he's really a Benedict Arnold who's for gun control. Just ask the NRA. I'm a businessman and a Navy SEAL, and most importantly, I am what I say I am. I'll cut taxes, crush sex trafficking, and get our kids reading. So let's roll.
AP joining us now, candidate for Georgia governor on the Republican primary ticket, Hunter Hill. Mr. Hill, how are you this morning?
Hey, Brian, I'm doing great. It's great to be with you.
Give me just a brief, and I know we have I was told by your campaign, a hard 9:30 or whenever you have to get on to your next stop, because I do know you have scheduled stops and the push is on. So don't take this wrong, but, you know, I want to get some pretty fast questions and answers. That's about as nice as I can say. Are you okay?
Very good.
Are you okay with that? Where are you at today? What's on the campaign trail for today in Hunter Hill campaign?
Well, we started our bus tour in Northwest Georgia, had a great day on day 1, then went over to Northeast Georgia, and today we are in Augusta in Columbia County.
Okay, so you're over in Augusta on a bus tour. Yesterday, we thank you for visiting LJ, Georgia. I'm sorry that I had actually some guests in yesterday, some guest hosts, and we were not able to have you in the studio. That's why I wanted to get you on immediately. But we thank you for visiting LJ, Georgia, and Mike's LJ restaurant. And we know we caught up with you, FetcherNews.com, over in Dahlonega yesterday. I want to ask you some questions. I, for one, feel the preliminary polling is really skewed, but we're going to go with what we see out there and what we're being told. We're hearing that Casey Cagle is the presumptive front runner, but then we're neck and neck with you and Brian Kemp in second. but the scale of the undecided is enormous. So this is really a second, no disrespect, not that you couldn't win first, but this is really open for that second spot and what is mathematically going to be a runoff, correct?
Well, it's very true there's going to be a runoff. And look, we are better than that poll indicates, but we can't worry about polls. All we can do is worry about sharing our true conservative vision. We feel confident about our position, strong position in second, and that we're closing the gap against Cagle every day. The reality is voters are looking for an alternative to the political class, an alternative to career politicians who campaign like Ronald Reagan and then govern like Barack Obama.
Well, let me say this, sir. My opinion of what I'm seeing out there, because I'm watching the Facebook page posts and I'm watching the articles, and we just played for our viewers here the Benedict Arnold. And I know you're getting asked that all the time. The Benedict Arnold Clay Tippins commercial depicting you as someone hiding behind the tree. Have you spoke to him about that? Have you spoke to his campaign? Has he reached out to you? Has there been any apology? Because I think that was pretty, I don't know, I'm really not okay with that myself.
I have no need to speak to him. The bottom line is he spoke to everybody very clearly about his lack of character and understanding about the great veterans we have all over this state. Look, we have hundreds of thousands of veterans who honorably serve their country, and to call somebody like myself who led troops in 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan a Benedict Arnold, which is our nation's first traitor, is an abomination, and it's ridiculous. And the bottom line is it brought great discredit upon his service and the service of these great veterans in Georgia. But we put it behind us. We move on. We keep continuing to tell the truth about our record. I have an A rating from the NRA. And I earned an A rating from the NRA because every chance I got to vote on an expansion of the Second Amendment, I voted for it. And I also fought to defend our Constitution and the principles enshrined in it on 3 combat tours. So I'm the only candidate that has those bona fides in terms of protecting our foundational constitutional principles. And desperate candidates will say anything to get elected.
Well, Mr. Hill, let me say this. I think we've spoke several times. I will debate with you on policy all day, and in fact, I probably enjoy that too much, but I want to say thank you for your service. You're a patriot, and I think what really set me back on that is Clay Tippins is a Navy SEAL, and it would be no different than anybody else running the commercial, but coming from him, knowing your service. So we'll leave that alone, but I guess that's what just made me step back just a little further on what that candidate did. So, and I think you and I have gotten to know each other. We'll debate policy, we'll debate issues, but thank you for your service. Let's go on to the NRA. Now, again, and I'm bringing him up for a reason, okay? Not Casey Cagle. I'm bringing up Clay Tippins for a reason because there's something I see here in the water. Is he's polling 4% if that is correct. But I don't think he's attacking you to launch himself further in the poll. It looks like he's trying to pull you back. On a Facebook post, he really went after you with a picture of you and Kasim Reed, the former mayor of Atlanta. And as you said, you have an NRA rating of an A. That's this year. But he says that you have a C in 2012. Is that accurate that you got a C from the NRA in 2012?
Well, as I mentioned to you, I said I earned the A because of my voting record. When I did not have a voting record, the only way the NRA can score your positions is by giving you a questionnaire. And I filled the questionnaire out wrong, and I tried to talk to the NRA about it, but I did go through that election cycle in 2012 with a C. And the reality is, having earned the A through my actual voting record is why the NRA has given me an A. So, yeah, there was a C that was given to me out of the gates as I was new to politics and filled the questionnaire out wrong. But I have earned an A based on my record and my service.
Well, let me say I have read, and I want to thank you for that. You did send us your NRA survey, and we do have a copy, so we appreciate your campaign. We have asked all the campaigns to send their NRA survey, and the only 2 NRA surveys that we received is your campaign and Brian Kemp. So we appreciate you sending that survey over. I read every single question on that survey in detail, and I would just say, you know, I might be confused by a question and put an X in the wrong place. So we're not gonna go back and forth on that. You do currently have an A rating for the NRA, from the NRA. Why do you feel Tippins is attacking you, not Brian Kemp, not Michael Williams? And I know in the ads he puts Casey Cagle, but why so much attacking you? Do you feel like that they see you as surging and they're trying to pull you back?
Absolutely. Look, we have a true conservative message for Georgia, and we've only been in the state Senate for 5 years, and that's why I'm running. We don't have forever to make some of these changes, so I have a sense of urgency to change it, and I think he's frustrated that he's not getting traction, and that's why he's attacking us. But I can't worry about that. We want to eliminate the Georgia state income tax. We want to move Georgia to a more limited and focused government that delivers results for taxpayers, and we want to elevate education in Georgia by letting the money follow the child and put the free market principles of competition into K-12 education and elevate all boats, because, you know, our founders said they believed in protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How are you going to pursue your happiness if you don't have a foundational, solid K-12 education? You can't do it. And we've got to attack the government-centric approaches to education and elevate all boats.
Yesterday, our reporter Bill Johnson caught up with you in Dahlonega. He asked you several questions. I have several of the quotes that you gave him. But one of the questions we wanted to know here is, obviously, May 22nd is what we're running for right now, obviously. And then May 23rd, we'll worry about that. But your campaign has to also be looking at a runoff mathematically. I heard Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle tell several people at several stops yesterday that mathematically there would be a runoff. How would you, if you're the number two, even maybe the number one candidate, but how are you going to bring a Clay Tippins 5 and 6% and a Michael Williams 5 and 6%? How are you going to bring that along to your campaign? And also, do you have the resources? Do you think you'll have the resources to match up with the lieutenant governor in a runoff?
Look, I told my team from the beginning, when no one had ever heard of us, we were just a state senator from just outside of Atlanta, that we had to earn it every day. And that's what we've been doing for the last year, is speaking to voters about our conservative vision. Voters want an alternative to the political class. I don't worry about Casey Cagle, because I already know the voters are looking for an alternative to him. If we're in a one-on-one environment with him, they're going to pick true conservative leadership over 24 years of a career politician who campaigns like Ronald Reagan and then governs like Barack Obama. So the way we get whoever votes for Tippins and Williams and Kemp to join our team is by continuing to share our vision. I would be grateful for their endorsements if that happens, but the more important thing is continuing to talk to the voters that voted for them and getting each of those voters to join us, because they're going to be far more aligned with us than they are with Casey Cagle's lack of vision.
Well, I guess I'm being just a little redundant on your answer there, because you did say yesterday you told Fetcher News that that you would beat Casey Cagle in a runoff, and Casey is weak because he is a career politician. Casey has 100% name ID, but 65% of folks are looking for an alternative to him. All right, so how do you know that 65%? Do you have some internal polling? What are you seeing out there that leads you to believe that 65% of Republican primary voters are looking for an alternative to Casey Cagle?
Yeah, so, 60, 65%. I mean, whether he's at 40 or whether he's at 35, there's no new information coming out about Casey. He's been in the public eye for 24 years in Georgia. So how are you going to convince people today to vote for you if they already know who you are and they're not already with you? That's the point there.
Do you think your newest ad comes back to, and not that you ever left it, sir, but it comes back to faith, Christianity? You very seldom do any ads or talk anywhere that I've listened to you speak that you don't discuss your faith with the voters. But I mean, is that what you think? Is that what you think could work to the far right? And will that be not a problem, no disrespect, but I don't care to say on this TV we share that faith, okay? But I don't want to say problem, but if you were to get into the general election, would you not have to look at some other things or maybe tone that back? And I don't know how other way to frame that.
I want people to know who I am, how I would lead, and my Christian faith and my belief in the Lord Jesus Christ is foundational to how I lead and how I would serve. The scriptures of the Old and New Testament inform my political philosophy as well. So what we're trying to do is let people know the depth and breadth of how we make decisions, because all the particulars of policy are not going to be covered in an election cycle. So we talk about eliminating the income tax. We talk about elevating education. We talk about a limited and focused government that delivers results for taxpayers. But there's a myriad of issues. I want to make sure our religious liberties are protected in Georgia. I want to make sure people know that the foundational constitutional principle of the Second Amendment, that God-given right to protect yourself and your family, will remain strong under my leadership. So the Christian values of our country need to be protected. And that, to me, sells in any election, because Georgia is a conservative state and we need true conservative leadership to lead it.
I found the way I actually want to frame that, and I didn't do a very good job going into that, Mr. Hill. So I want to frame it this way. We hear in politics all too often, run to the right. Run to the right. I'm getting the wrap-up sign. You got to go. So let's two more things. Run to the right, move to the center in the general. And Georgia is not blue, but it's getting a little bit purple. So are you telling us, would you guarantee today the Hunter Hill that we talk to, see, and you discuss your values today will be that Hunter Hill in the general and as governor of Georgia if elected?
Absolutely. Of course. I mean, of course, there's nothing else to discuss on that. We are going to be talking about the same issues as we get through this entire election cycle, because that's how we're going to lead as governor.
We got to wrap up. Your team said that we got to go and you got to move on. One or two very quick things that you're hearing on the campaign trail from the voters that the voters of Georgia want to know about their next governor or want to ask their next governor. What are one or two of the number one questions you're being asked on the campaign trail by voters?
Voters want to know that I'm going to be as conservative as I'm talking about, because people are tired of career politicians campaigning like Ronald Reagan and then governing like Barack Obama. So the whole differentiator between us and every other candidate in this race is that we have true conservative values and principles, and we have the leadership ability to get those values and principles implemented into policy. What is the point of having majorities in the House and the Senate if we're not going to have a leader that's guiding and moving people towards that vision of a more conservative Georgia that delivers results for taxpayers? And that's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to lead. And that's why we're going to win this election in November.
Hey, folks, we are back. That was BKP doing his most recent interview with Hunter Hill, who was just endorsed by Senator Ted Cruz out of Texas. Congratulations to Hunter Hill there. We've got a few minutes left here, and I wanted to touch on something yesterday. Beautiful dedication in the Rose Garden yesterday. Melania Trump, the FLOTUS First Lady, she introduced her Be Best campaign. This is a 3-part campaign, folks, on well-being, social media use, and opioid abuse. And I mean, it couldn't have been any better. She said in a speech, "Let us teach our children the difference between right and wrong and encourage them to be best in their individual paths in life." The more America sees her, the more they're falling in love with this First Lady. Poll just came out, 57% approval. And I got to tell you, I'm gonna go off the rails here a little bit and try to point out exactly what I was saying earlier, that regardless of the person that's between the mainstream media and Trump, they slam that person. What in the world are they slamming Melania Trump for? We had CNN contributor April Ryan, who's nothing but a liberal hack, yesterday suggesting that First Lady Melania Trump is not culturally American. Really? What is not culturally American when she was discussing the Be Best campaign to combat cyberbullying? She said, this is not a First Lady First Lady who is not culturally American, when she's learning the ways, and this is not an American issue. These are not just American issues, Ryan said. These are international issues. Excuse me, Melania is a U.S. citizen, but she's also born in Slovenia. Does that not make her an international citizen? You know, the same garbage spews out of this CNN hack's mouth constantly. She had absurd comments how long the First Lady has lived in the country. There's just a list of stuff, and I'm just so tired of seeing her in the press room, and the two of them from CNN. She remembers the time when people were called racist for saying things like that. Conservative commentator Glenn Beck blasted Ryan for the comment. I know when some said Obama wasn't fully culturally American, reporters cried racism. Now that you are a reporter saying the same thing, can they cry racism? Or do you just hate foreigners? Wow, this is easy. I see why the lefties like it. White House Director of Strategic Response Stephen Chung wrote, what does that even mean on a day when Mrs. Trump unveiled a very important initiative, #BeBest? Reporters can't bring themselves to talk about anything but rumors and innuendo? This is the same, I'm going to hold my word on that one. This is the same Ryan who twisted Sarah Sanders' words on Thursday in order to make another absurd suggestion. The White House press secretary is looking for a fight, a physical confrontation with this hack. This just nothing but a liberal advocate. She kept asking combative questions. Well, with all due respect, Sanders said, you don't know much about me. And, right away, April Ryan got in the gutter and said, that's street talk for you want to fight. It's just so old to see this going on. It's nothing more than just liberal hacks who can't stand Trump. I'm going to close this little off-the-rails segment by saying Ryan is also the one that accused Sanders about lying whether she baked a pie for Thanksgiving. I'm telling you, folks, it is the dumbest thing going on, is to listen to these people in the press corps ask these ridiculous, inane questions that have nothing to do with the topic, but everything to do about trying to punish and make anybody look bad associated with Donald Trump. Anyway, that's my...
Rick, I want to pop in on that, and I want to explain why people like April Ryan and CNN and MSNBC and all these other people that are so against Melania.
Good. I'm glad someone can lend some credence or shed some light on that. Will you for me, Amanda?
You know why they hate her so much?
Tell me.
She did it right.
She did it right. Absolutely, she did it right. And you know what?
She did
it right, citizen. Looking good too.
Yeah, she did everything right. She even told everyone whenever she was getting flagged back when the elections were going on in 2016, she was getting flagged then for being an immigrant. But, when she tells everybody, hey, well, I did it right. I went to this country on a green card, on a visa, and then I went through the process of, becoming a citizen. And there was a lot of back and forth between there with her because she was working as well.
She'd been a citizen in this country for 12 years.
Yep.
I'd kill to be able to speak as many languages as that lady. She is a bright,
very
articulate lady.
And that's another thing that they'll lowball on her, that, she can't speak, she doesn't have good English, and she doesn't speak. She speaks. You know how hard it is to speak a different language, let alone how many can she speak for?
Yeah.
It's so immature. I can't stand the flag on her. And another woman that goes off the rails of her that reminds me of April Ryan is Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg will say anything about another woman, but be the first to stand up on feminist rights. That's not a good feminist there. I do have some commentary about The View.
The View, good old Whoopi on The View, right?
God. Okay, so Kanye has been attacked by all the hens. And so Kanye actually was featured, I think this was on the 4th, on The View, where they're saying that he suggests that slavery was a choice. And I'm going to break down this video, but we're going to go ahead and watch it.
I have to imagine that it takes a lot to freak out the people at TMZ Live. But Kanye West managed to do that because he said something that caused such an uproar yesterday. Even a TMZ employee had to call him out on it. Said, well, wait a minute. Take a look.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all?
While you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives. We have to deal with the marginalization that has come from the 400 years of slavery that you said for our people was a choice.
Now, Kanye followed up by tweeting, to make myself clear, of course, I know that slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point is for us to have stayed in that position, even though the numbers were on our side, means that we were mentally enslaved. Kanye, look, there were laws that were put in place that said we were less than human. And so when you have laws that say you're less than human, they don't let you in a room. They don't let you in a door. You are meant to live in a different way, like an animal oftentimes. So you have to keep in mind that, you know, as we come around and fix these laws and say, listen, it's not okay for you to tell me I can't vote. I'm going to fight. And white folks got on board and everybody got on board and said, this is not okay. We're all American citizens. We should all be able to vote. So that was a change. You change the laws, you change the mentality, but you can't pretend like people are just saying, I'm going to stay here because this feels really comfortable for me.
Yeah. There are still systematic problems in place from those hundreds of years of slavery that people are fighting for every day. And I think the irony of him saying that Trump was speaking to the working class, or that Kanye could maybe understand an average person of color's experience in a day, is not lost on me. But I think the problem is you've got to know history to make sure it doesn't repeat itself. And you can debate the why something happened, but you can't debate the what happened.
Well, you know, when last year when I was in Charleston, I went to a slave, went to a plantation, and it was in the middle of nowhere. You know, so it really looks like it would be very difficult to escape. And if you did try to escape, he talks about 400 years and nobody escaped, I guess. People are trying to escape all the time. They would get caught, they would get caught, killed, shackled, beaten up, and brought back. So for 400 years, it was impossible to get out of the system. Very few escaped, and probably with the help of some good Samaritans here and there.
Well, like Harriet Tubman.
And the Underground Railroad.
I think for me, what's so dangerous about what he's saying is that he is, one, ignoring the history, but more importantly, ignoring the fact that there is this institutionalized racism that exists today. I never forget when my father told me, and I was born in '68, he told me, you're the first person in our family that has full civil rights. And he told me that about 10 years ago. And I thought, my God, I'm 40 years old, and I'm the only person in our family that enjoys the first that enjoys the full promise of our Constitution and of our flag. Are you kidding me? And so the fact that Kanye West is being taken literally by people, you know, that he's a spokesperson for African Americans, I think is really disturbing. Well, really, really disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday when I was watching it, I was actually at home with a friend, and we actually stopped what we were doing to watch it because it was trending on Twitter, and it looked to me like someone having some kind of breakdown on reality. He talked about being addicted to opioids and having liposuction and talking about being compared to his brother or brother-in-law, Fat Rob, and it was actually hard to watch. It reminded me of Britney Spears when she was shaving her head and, you know, with the umbrella. So I actually think just from like a compassionate standpoint, this doesn't look like someone who's well to me. I will say on a totally different note for the politics of this is, I appreciate when people evolve in their politics. I've gotten a lot more conservative as I've gotten older. If he has come to a place where he, I don't know, believes in small government and strong national defense and individualism, that's fine. have a sit-down, calm conversation about your ideology in a way that is easily accessible for all of us to understand. Because I'm a political analyst, and I did not understand what he was saying. Candace Owens came on, and I was like, the Republican platforms that I love and believe in with all my heart have absolutely nothing to do with anything you're saying whatsoever, and I am an expert.
So I want to say something
I'm listening
about what Meghan McCain. Okay, since she cannot stay on her side of the conservative fence. Okay, if you notice, her producer or somebody must be telling her, look, like you're getting you're losing a lot of viewers. Like people are starting to hate you. You need to come back to the left a little bit.
You mean like Joy Reid?
Yeah, do like your dad and come back to the left a little bit here. And because I am not a political analyst, and I can say that I completely understand what Kanye is trying to say. See, whenever you're talking to these people who don't have the political education, or are not familiar with these terms or even psychological terms, what Kanye was trying to say, he's not saying that slavery was a choice. He's not trying to say that people didn't just wake up in the middle of the night one day and just decide to fight back. What he's trying to say is what had happened over these course of hundreds of years is that these people had became so dependent, like Stockholm syndrome. They became dependent and emotionally invested in their captors. And that is specifically what he's trying to say, is that they became so enslaved physically that they also became enslaved mentally.
Well, firstly, I want to say thanks for playing that clip, because it reconstitutes my my effort never to watch that show again unless you bring me a clip for some reason that we want to chat about.
It'll come up in my feed every once in a while, and it's like one of those things where you don't want to look. It's like a car crash. You don't want to look, but it's so bad.
Yeah,
that
the only thing that jumps out at me is all of a sudden Whoopi is advocating for the rule of law.
Right.
Really?
Oh yeah.
When have you done that in the past?
Oh no!
Whoopi?
And all of a sudden, she's a journalist. That's what she had to argue with the other day too, as well. That she is a journalist, actually. Whenever everybody's asking her, how would she know journalism rules from the?
The only time I've ever enjoyed Whoopi Goldberg in my life is when she was in Sister Act.
I thought you were gonna. I liked her in Girl Interrupted, but now, nah. But obviously, since Whoopi wants to talk about that, and that's another thing with Meghan McCain. Like, seriously, he's not mentally well. Who says that? Who are you to even say that? He looked coherent to me. He didn't shave his head like Britney Spears and drive with his toddler down the highway. Like, what are you talking about? Now we're gonna paint Kanye that he's not mentally well because he states his, it is an uneducated opinion, but I understood what he was trying to say perfectly. And another thing with the Stockholm syndrome, Whoopi obviously is suffering from Stockholm syndrome as well, since she's so on the left. From the very people that started slavery in the first place. But you're raised by these revolutionists, that they're, it is like you guys say, it's like sheep in a pen. It's like they can't get away from it.
Yeah. Who's the doctor that I'm trying to think of his name? That's on the ran for president. The black, the African American.
Oh yes, I can't remember. Ben Carson.
Dr. Ben Carson.
Yes, Ben Carson.
Anyway, Ben talks about this vicious cycle of being poor.
Right.
Which is the same thing. At some point in time, you've got to break out, but you've got to have it in your mind that you want to break out, just like he and his brother did. His brother was a NASA engineer. He was a NASA engineer, and Ben Carson, one of the leading pediatric brain surgeons in the world. Mm-hmm. How did they do it? They had the mindset to break out.
To get out of the mentality.
That's, I think, was what Kanye West is saying. We didn't physically, cut the chains with a hacksaw. But we got to have the mental fortitude to get out of this syndrome like you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's just, and people like Whoopi, I don't know if you've seen, like, back in the day, her and Laura Ingraham would talk about how they would argue back and forth about Black Panther rights and all of these things. When you keep those things, and I'm not trying to start, a whole nother battle about Black Panther, but someone like that who has the mentality of that an oppressionist group like that is going to make a difference with just staying stagnant in these feelings of resentment and grief and poverty and unfairness, you're not going to go anywhere. And then, and that's not even for people of color. That's speaking for any ethnicity. That anyone who has the mentality that you are not better or equal to than someone else out here, or you do not have the same opportunities in a country where you do have opportunities, you're doomed from the start.
Yep. And it's interesting to watch the pushback that Kanye West is getting when he brings Candace Brown into the picture.
Right.
Candace Brown is a very, very articulate, young, conservative, African-American woman who has come on the scene recently, and he's quoted her and he's applauded her for standing up for what she believes in, regardless of the fact that she's black. It's almost like people say, well, you can't think that way because you're black.
Right.
That's the syndrome.
Yep, it is.
So.
And when he did release on Twitter, that he did not mean to say that it was their choice, that they got shackled and everything by choice. And that's just another thing that he, in the future should probably articulate and look further into for the wording, I guess. It's just his vocabulary is off, but I completely understand what he was trying to say. It was just, to a point where back then when you're thinking like you have nothing and you have nowhere to go, you're going to stay in that mentality. What he was trying to say is that they should have started something sooner, because there was a point that Whoopi does not bring up where people back then, they were joining the war. They were pushing, there was fighting for those equal rights. It wasn't just, out here you were completely unequal until there was a 1960s revolution and Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah. No question. Maybe Meghan McCain ought to take some of that home and go talk some sense into her father about who he wants to give the eulogy.
And even Whoopi's beloved left, the Democrats did not, even after slaves were free, did not see it fit for a former slave or a person of color, any color besides white, to have a gun.
Exactly.
It's just, like you said, it's gonna keep stagnant until people like this are just silenced forever.
People are tired of it. They truly are. They're tired of it. They're tired of being bullied. They're tired of being picked on. They're tired of the name calling. And that's typically, well, that's just what liberals do anyway. But that's my rant of the day. That's a good piece. Folks, we don't have a whole lot of time yet left here.
And I do want to announce that we are playing Instant Replay after this, and so stick around. We'll be starting that in a couple minutes.
The Instant Replay, that's the 1 hour sports show, right?
Yes, that's our new
live
sports show
every
with
Monday,
Dave Gardner.
And Instant Replay this afternoon, or this morning at 10 o'clock. You can also go to YouTube channel, YouTube, FYN help me, FYNTV.com. You can see the replay of our show today, if you dare. Anyway, we had a great. Thank you again to Joanne for calling in. That was a wonderful segment. I got texts from a couple people saying how good it was. I've enjoyed the 2 hours with everybody here in the studio. The catering is always good. I mean, the catering in the morning, the breakfast. I can't even believe that I stayed awake during this whole thing. I ate so much this morning, but the catering was good. We want BKP to get well, get some rest, get back on your feet, BKP. Because man, I can't do this every day, dude. I don't know
It's
how
rough,
you do
isn't it?
I don't know how you do it, but you do it well. We were just trying to add a little bit of continuity with the big news day yesterday.
I want to say you did a great job. It is a very tough, difficult job, and it is a tough job back here behind the scenes that we do too. But
Well,
I know that, they say that for every hour that you talk, during a live audience, or, like a lot of pastors they'll talk about how, talking for every hour is the equivalent to one car crash.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's true.
Holy cow. Anyway, I miss my partner, Bruce. He's out on the road. He'll be back with us one of these days. But again, I've enjoyed my time. We had some great news come across the wire today while we were on the show. It actually gives me goosebumps to talk about it again. The 3 captive Korean Americans that were held captive in North Korea are coming home. They are on the plane with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and they are coming home back to freedom. I'm sure they'll go through some medical exams, some debriefing, and we're just so delighted, though, that Trump keeps delivering on his promises and setting the stage for the next success. He keeps winning and winning and winning. He keeps the Dems on their toes. We're gonna get Gina Haspel approved today. She's currently getting grilled by the Intelligence Committee, and rightly so. There's some tough questions that had to be asked. She didn't do anything against the law. What she was doing is she was acting within her guidelines to protect Americans. 33-year service with the CIA. We look forward to her being named and breaking that female glass ceiling once and for all. So, again, it's been a fun 2 hours. And Amanda, thank you. Sam, thank you. Get well, BKP. And I am out of here.